What happens when three loud bikers pick the wrong man to humiliate on a quiet corner? They thought he was just an old black man serving free tea. But what happened next made the entire block stop and stare. Let me tell you how this mess started. It was a cold Tuesday morning in Montgomery. One of those bone-stiff mornings where even your breath comes out looking for shelter. I set up my little table like I always do, right on the corner of Madison and Polk. Been doing that for the past 7 years. I'm not running a business, and no, I'm not out here begging. I just pour hot tea for folks waiting on the bus. Mints, chamomile, lemon balm, I bring peace in a paper cup. That morning, the steam from the kettle danced like little spirits, and I had some gospel playing low from my speaker. A woman with 2 grocery bags smiled, took a cup, and whispered, "Bless you." I nodded back. "1 cup closer to heaven, sister." Then came a young brother, maybe in his 20s, construction boots on, face half asleep. I handed him a cup, too. He blinked and said, "Man, this real tea?" I chuckled. "Ain't no powdered mix here, son." But peace don't like to linger too long in places like this. And wouldn't you know, that's when I heard the growl. Not a dog. Louder. Angrier. 3 Harleys swung around the corner like they owned the street. They weren't subtle about it either. Roaring engines, leather jackets patched with skulls and eagles, and the kind of look-at-me energy that says trouble's about to follow. I've seen men like that before. Too loud, too proud, and too empty inside. They rolled right up to the curb like they were pulling into a driveway they paid for. One of them, big, bald, neck like a tree trunk, hopped off first. His boots hit the ground like threats. "Well, would you look at this?" he said, gesturing to my table. "The tea fairy's out early today." Now, I've lived long enough not to rise to every fool that tries to bait me. So I just said, "Morning to you two." That didn't sit right with him. Folks like that don't like dignity. They want fear, or at least silence. But I gave him none. He leaned in close, eyes squinting like he was trying to figure out what kind of man I was. "You sellin' something?" "Nope." "Then what's all this? Free tea for the poor little workers?" I looked him dead in the face and said, "Something like that. You want a cup?" He smirked. Not the kind of smirk that says, "Thanks." The kind that says, "Now I really want to ruin your day." Before I could say another word, his hand swept across the table. Paper cups tumbled to the ground, and one rolled to the gutter like it had somewhere safer to be. His buddies howled with laughter. One of them, skinny with a red bandana, added, "Must be charity season, huh?" The worst part? Folks watched. I saw it clear as day. 2 young men across the street paused their conversation. A woman pulling her kid along slowed down. Everyone saw. And nobody moved. I bent down to pick up the cups, real slow, like I wasn't about to let them see me rattled. "You don't got nothing better to do?" I asked. The red bandana guy laughed. "Nah, man, this is better." Then the big one, the one who started it, leaned in again and said, "You should be thanking us. We're teaching you how the world works." That's when he kicked over my thermos. My tea, that hot, healing tea I brewed with care at 5 a.m., spilled out onto the concrete like it didn't matter. Like I didn't matter. Something inside me twisted. Not just from the mess, but from the silence, the indifference, the way injustice sits back in a chair, kicks its feet up, and dares you to do something. I stood up straight. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just looked him in the eye. My back was stiff. My pride was intact. And that? Oh, that pissed him off. He stepped forward and grabbed my collar, rough, like I was nothing but cloth and bones. And let me tell you something. At 72, you feel every tug like it's your last. But I didn't blink. Not once. "You done?" I asked. He wasn't. Not yet. And that's where everything changed. To be continued. What happened next changed everything. You do not want to miss how this unfolds. I've lived through some things. I've seen folks spit on the ground when I walked by. I've been mistaken for everything but a human being. But that morning, standing there with my collar bunched up in this man's dirty glove, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not fear, not anger, disgust, not just for the bikers, for the crowd, for the bystanders with working legs but paralyzed spines. You ever seen someone watch injustice happen like it's a street performance? That's what this was. Live and in color. The big guy holding me, I heard someone call him Mick, wasn't finished playing tough. He yanked me forward a little more and muttered something I won't repeat. Something that wasn't just disrespectful. It was dehumanizing. I said, "Let go of me." Calm. Straight. Like a man. He didn't. Instead, Mick chuckled and shoved me back. Not hard like a punch, no. Just hard enough to knock me off balance and remind me that I was 72 and no longer built for surprises like that. My back hit the glass of the bus stop shelter. My shoulder cracked into the metal frame. My knees buckled, but I stayed standing, barely. Someone gasped, not stepped forward, not said a word, just gasped. Real helpful. I straightened up and caught my breath. My tea, my cups, the table. All gone. My pride? Still standing right there with me. That's when the small one, the one with the red bandana, pulled out his phone and started filming. "Oh, come on, man. This is gold. Old man wants to play Gandhi." They all laughed. Loud, sharp laughter. The kind that cuts deeper than fists. I looked at him. "You filming? Good. Maybe you'll catch the part where you embarrassed your whole bloodline." That wiped the smirk off his face for half a second. Right then, a woman across the street, maybe in her 30s, holding her daughter's hand, raised her voice. "Leave him alone! What's wrong with you?" Mick turned his head slow. Real slow. Like a dog spotting another challenge. "You want to come say that up close?" he said, taking one step toward her. She froze. Her hand tightened around the little girl's. And that was it. That one moment told me everything I needed to know. These men didn't just want to intimidate me. They wanted to own the block, the sidewalk, the narrative. They didn't see an old man handing out tea. They saw someone they thought they could humiliate for sport. And what stung the most? They were probably right, because nobody, not one person, stepped in. Oh, there were plenty of folks watching. I saw a delivery driver pretending to check his route. A man in a suit holding his phone just low enough to look like he might be calling someone, but he wasn't. He was waiting to see how far this would go. So I did the only thing I could do. I picked up the folded leg of my broken table, stood there like a statue, and locked eyes with Mick. "You made your point," I said. "Now be a man and move on." He stared at me, trying to figure out what it was that made me so steady, so unshaken. He didn't know I'd been through worse in the 1960s and came out with my dignity intact. He didn't know that I'd lost a brother to a fight that looked just like this one, except nobody had a phone back then. His fingers twitched. He wanted to take it further. You could see it in his eyes, that itch to cross the line. And then? Then came the roar. A deep, thunderous engine turned the corner. Not like their bikes. Lower. heavier, controlled. A black SUV pulled up with dust spinning behind it, and it stopped hard right at the curb. The driver's door opened. A figure stepped out, tall and square-shouldered. Combat boots, olive green field jacket, calm walk, no rush, no fear. His eyes scanned the scene. He wasn't looking for trouble, but he knew where to find it. He locked eyes with me. I said nothing. Didn't have to. Because sometimes silence says everything. This is the climax. Everything you've been waiting for. It's right here. Stay close, because what happens next will flip the whole story. Now I know what you're thinking. Big SUV, big boots, big presence. Somebody's about to get a lesson. Well, you're not wrong. The man who stepped out, that was my boy. Not my junior went to college boy. Not my he runs a startup boy. That was Major Marcus J. Banks, retired Army intelligence, now serving in the Department of Homeland Security. A man who doesn't blink in front of generals, and sure as daylight, doesn't flinch in front of fools. But before you get caught up in titles and uniforms, let me tell you something. That's still my baby boy. The one I taught how to tie his shoes on the back porch. The one I raised on stories of dignity, of not letting anyone decide your worth. And now, here he was, standing between me and a pack of wannabe street wolves. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He just looked around, slow and steady, like he was taking inventory of everything. The broken table, the spilled tea, the trembling woman across the street, still clutching her child. Then he looked right at Mick. Who touched this man? Calm, sharp, like a blade that doesn't need polish to cut deep. Mick puffed up, you know, like a rooster that don't know he's in the lion's yard. Who's asking? Marcus reached into his jacket, real smooth, and pulled out his badge. Not a local badge, not a traffic ticket badge. Federal, plain and clean. Homeland. My name's Major Banks. This man you just assaulted, that's my father. You could feel the temperature drop. The third biker, the one who hadn't said much, took a half step back, like he suddenly realized the floor under him wasn't so stable. Mick gave a weak laugh. Whoa, now it was just a joke. Old man was getting mouthy. Marcus didn't move, didn't blink. You kicked over his belongings. You laid hands on him. You threatened a woman in public. You're on camera. And whether you think this was a joke or not, you're going to answer for it. Now remember that guy filming earlier? Oh, he was filming still. But now he was aiming like his life depended on catching every word. And you best believe this wasn't going on his private Instagram. Two plainclothes agents stepped out of the SUV. I hadn't even noticed they were in the back seat. Quiet. Watchful. Moving like men who've done this dance before. Marcus nodded once. That's all it took. The agents approached calmly. No dramatics, no noise, just quiet confidence. And suddenly, those loud bikers? Mouths zipped. One tried to talk, the red bandana one, but it came out like a stuttered cough and died mid-sentence. Meanwhile, the crowd. Oh, now they started reacting. Phones out, whispers spreading. That man? That old man they laughed at? He had backup, not just muscle. Respect. The woman with the little girl walked up and handed me a fresh paper cup. I thought you might still want your tea. I took it, smiled. Thank you, sweetheart. Then I looked at Marcus. You didn't have to come. He shook his head. You taught me not to walk away when a man needs standing beside. And just like that, the noise faded. The agents moved in. Names were taken. Body cams were activated. Statements logged. Mick and his crew? They were no longer roaring lions, more like three house cats caught on the kitchen counter. And let me tell you, the fall from arrogance to silence, that's a steep one. Now, I don't know what happened to those boys after that day. Maybe they sat in a courtroom. Maybe they finally learned the difference between strength and intimidation. Or maybe they didn't learn a thing. That part's not my job to fix. But I'll tell you what did happen. The next morning, I set up my table again. Same corner, same tea. And this time, there were more people waiting in line than I ever seen before. Even a local news truck parked across the street, trying to accidentally catch a quote from the mystery veteran. Some folks nodded. Some hugged me. Some just said, "We saw." But the ones I looked for most, the quiet ones, the ones who didn't say a word yesterday. Because sometimes, silence isn't neutral. It's a choice. And you don't need to throw fists to stand for something. Sometimes, all it takes is showing up. And as long as I've got breath, a kettle, and a folding table, I'm gonna keep showing up. Because respect, that's brewed the same way as tea. Slow, steady, and with heat that you don't mess with. The end. If this story stirred something in you, share it. Because some truths aren't meant to be whispered. They're meant to be heard.